What up, everyone? Happy New Year? Yeah. Wow, that was unexpected. Okay, so I wanted to do a little review. I told you guys I'd be doing some more figure reviews, collectibles, things like that. Want to kind of sprinkle them in between the boxes. I know the boxes get boring after a while when it's just the same generic shit all the time, so kind of want to do like an every other type of thing to kind of mix it up, because even I get bored of the boxes. Like when it just gets overly generic. I got like 20 of them this month, so want to mix it up. And this series I needed to do a review of, because this series is fucked. Like legit fucked 3 ways to Sunday. And it is the X-Men Mystery Minis. Both of them, there's Hot Topic and Regular. That's the series I'm reviewing today, and I needed to talk about this. This is one of the few times, actually, that I'll review a series without actually having the whole series. And there's a reason for that, obviously, because it's total shit. And I got a couple of them, but I'll talk more about that. And I'm also going to give like a little history thing, some information about that. I know some of you guys like when I talk about that. And if you don't want to hear it, no worries. I'll try to remember to put a link in the description, or a timestamp, so you can just go to the review, so we'll talk about that too. So, for this festive occasion, I've worn my Christmas cat sweater. Yeah, Christmas cats. Don't fuck with me. I wish it said that so bad. Christmas cats, don't fuck with me, at the bottom. Oh, this thing's itchy as shit, though. So yeah, wore my Christmas cat sweater so I can talk shit about this series. So, let's start from the beginning. Funko. As I'm sure most of you know, or if anyone's watched my channel, you know my feelings about Funko. I like Funko. They do good stuff, but they also do absolute shit stuff. And that's why I've avoided Pops for the most part. They're getting better now. They're getting much better in design and paint and sculpt and all that stuff. But for the longest time, back when I started the channel, they were all shit. They all looked exactly the same. They just changed the heads out. And the paint job was terrible and the sculpt was terrible. And it was like, why is this popular? Why are people buying this stuff? I don't get it. I didn't understand. And I thought it was getting better, and it has. But what I've realized is they're focusing their attention on certain things and completely dismissing others. So they have the potential to make good products for the same price that we buy it at, but sometimes it just gets lost in translation. They just literally don't put the effort in there, and it comes out looking like these little assholes over here. So, for one reason, or actually something that I've always done is, even with Pop figures, even the few that I've gotten, I've still avoided Marvel and Star Wars like the plague. Like, I do get the Smuggler's Bounty box, but that's the farthest I'll go, and I don't end up keeping a lot of that stuff. And the reason for that is, and this is where I'll talk about a little history here, is that I don't like bobbleheads. I never have. I've just seen them not treat these franchises very well. The Star Wars Pops look pretty good, and some of the Marvel ones look good, but I don't like bobbleheads. I don't know anyone that honestly does. I don't know anyone that would prefer bobbleheads. I don't think anyone does. But I'm sure you've realized at this point that all the Pops, all the Mystery Minis from either Star Wars or Marvel are all bobbleheads. There are no regular versions. They're all bobbleheads. And that's because they have to be. And I've always known that, and that's why I've avoided them, because they just bother me. Like, if I want to figure, like, why would I want his head to wobble? Like, why does that make it any better? It doesn't. So the whole reason for that is Funko actually has to make them bobbleheads. They cannot make them regular figures. The reason for that is, and I don't remember the company, so I may be getting the company wrong, and someone will probably correct me in the comments. I want to say it was Kenner that owns the actual manufacturing rights to toys for those franchises, for Marvel and for Star Wars. And I think it was Kenner at one point, and then they got bought out, and I'm not sure who it is anymore. But I'm not totally sure it even was Kenner. I may be getting that wrong, but for the sake of argument, I'm just going to keep saying it so it'll make sense. Anyway, as most of you know, especially Star Wars fans, both Marvel and Star Wars, when they started out, and up until Disney bought them, they were broke. They were flat broke. They had no money. Marvel was on the verge of bankruptcy dozens of times. That's why they constantly had to franchise stuff out. That's why they sold rights to Fox. That's why they sold rights to Sony. It wasn't to make money. It was to literally keep them from going out of business. They had no choice. And even with that, they still barely kept their heads afloat to the point where they had to sell to Disney. Same with Star Wars. When they started out, they had no money. They had zero money. A lot of you know that George Lucas, when he was making it, the company, they couldn't afford to pay the actors. They had no money to pay the actors. And so they paid them in royalties. That's what they got paid with. And I'm sure probably a small stipend on top of that. But they couldn't pay these actors, so they gave them royalties. Which normally would be a terrible deal, and nobody would do that, and it would be a bad sign. But this is like the one instance where it worked out in their favor, because those people are all stupid rich now. They're making money to this day on all the stuff from there. So they were making royalties all that time, so it ended up being a good deal. Also, a lot of people don't know, the first Star Wars toy series came out before the movie. They were trying to raise money for the movie, and the toy series came out before the movie was ever released. Which again is very odd if no one's ever seen anything from that franchise. But it went well, the toys sold really well, and that's how they got some of the money. So anyway, the point of all this was that back when whatever company it was, Kenner or whatever, that's how they made money. They had to give really bad deals to people. Same with Marvel. They had to give these toy companies 100% exclusive rights indefinitely for probably a really small amount of money because they were nobodies, and that was the only deal they could get. So at the time, it's no big deal. They get money and the company continues, but 30, 40 years later, now it's a problem because that toy company still owns the exclusive rights to it. So Funko and all the other companies cannot make action figures or toys with any of those characters. So that kind of sucks, seeing how like so many people, Disney owns it now, but they still can't do anything about it. So what they did, Funko's actually pretty smart in this sense. They really read up on their shit and realized that there is a loophole there that they can actually create bobbleheads, and they're not actually considered in the same category as action figures. So I think what the licensing deal was, I think it was toys and action figures, but bobbleheads are technically, I don't think they're categorized as, they're not action figures, definitely not. But I also don't think they're categorized as toys, they're categorized as collectibles. And back then, it didn't really mean much to call them different. Now it does, so they found a loophole and realized they can make bobbleheads, and it's not actually breaking any laws because that wasn't stated in the original contract. So, for those of you who didn't know that, that's the story behind it. That's why all their stuff has to be bobbleheads, because they don't have a choice. But with the one exception is the Vinyl Vixens, which I'm not sure how they got away with that, to be quite honest. That one's not bobbleheads, and I'm not sure why. I'm curious about that, to be quite honest. But in the meantime, all their stuff is. And, you know, bobbleheads are fine, but when you talk about mystery minis like this size, it's really weird to make them bobblehead. I know they have to, and it's better than not having them, but they always come super damaged. They're on one little spring, and I'm sure anyone who's bought in like the original Marvel series, every time you got a figure, their head was like tilted in some weird direction, and you try to set them up, and they're totally askew, and you can't really fix it without like dismantling it and fixing the spring. So it caused a bunch of problems. And also, even with their first series, they really didn't put that much effort into it. So, and again, most of you know there are two types of mystery minis. I call it Type A and Type B. Type A is awesome. Love Type A. Type B is shit. So I should pull up two. I'll grab two, or maybe I'll show a picture. Anyway, so Type A is the type I like. That's where you see the horror mystery minis, the sci-fi mystery minis, the Walking Dead, the Batman Arkham series, that one series they did. Some of the Blizzard ones were like that. That's where they're taller and their head's a little bit smaller. It's still a big head, but it's more proportioned to human scale. They always paint those. It always has a nice matte finish from the paint. They're sculpted really well. They really do an amazing job. I'm not even that big of a horror fan, and I have every single horror mystery minis because they do such an amazing job. They're really fantastic. Then there's Type B. And that's your Marvel, and that's the original DC series. That's all the Disney ones where most of them are bobblehead, and it's where they have this gigantic head where their head's practically as big as their body, and they're just not sculpted very well. A lot of them aren't painted. It's just colored plastic or whatever vinyl, whatever material they use. It's just the color of that vinyl. It's not actually painted, which we can totally tell the difference. And the faces are not painted on. They're just like the stick-on, like, faces and stuff like that. So that's Type B. And I honestly don't think they should both be called mystery minis. I think they should be two separate series because they're so unbelievably different. But yeah, Type B sucks. And actually, let me grab one. Here we go. So here's Type A. Let me see if I can grab Batman. Hold on. Alright, sorry about that. Should have had this prepared. So here's a perfect example. I'll show you. Here is Type A. Batman. Here is also Batman. Type B. See the difference? Taller, smaller head, big huge head, much less detail. Fully sculpted and painted, colored plastic, stick-on face. So this one's actually not that bad. This Batman looks decently cool, but you can see there's a gigantic difference, and like it's hard to say like these are literally both like the same series. Like these are both mystery minis of the Is this focusing? You fucking focus. Oh, this camera. So these are both DC mystery minis. Can I get you to focus for 5 seconds? Thank you. Anyway, it's hard to say that these are both mystery minis. Like these look nothing alike, but they're both part of like the same mystery mini genre. So I just think that's weird. I think they should separate the two, and one is clearly more badass than the other one. And this is, like I said, this isn't the best example because this one looks decently cool, but these ones, it's just, man, these are pretty rough. So now we'll get into the actual review of it now that I've explained myself, why I kind of avoid it, and these are just not designable. So we'll start off with the design aspect. And I'm giving this a 4 out of 10. I actually would have given it lower, but some of them actually look pretty cool. So the one figure I was trying to get was Juggernaut. I still think he looks decently cool. He's not amazing or anything, but I like Juggernaut. He's one of my favorite characters, and I always think his figures look cool because he's just such a big guy. And he's got this little dome head, so it's not that big of a deal. But when you look at characters like Professor X, he just looks like a fucking egghead. Like, look at him. Like, his head looks so weird and out of place. And it's just like, that doesn't look good. And then Cyclops, I think, was like, okay. It wasn't the best design, wasn't the worst design. It's just kind of in the middle. They could have done a much better job. But overall, they just could have done better. And I really wish, I know they would have trouble doing it this type A style because they have to be bobblehead, but I really wish they would do a Marvel series like this, or even Star Wars one, or whatever. I wish they'd do all their mystery minis like this. And it's the same price. There's no price difference between these two. One's just better. So I wish they would do all their mystery minis like this, but they don't. Why? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it just costs too much to pay people to design it. I'm not sure what the reason. I'm very curious to find out why they don't do good quality on everything. So I'm giving the design a 4 out of 10 because it does have some good features, but mostly poor decisions that they should not have done, and I'm not a fan of that. Next, the sculpt. Their execution of the design, again, very poor. And I'll try to show a close-up the best I can. So if you can see Juggernaut's knuckles here, you can see how there's that line there, and the same on his head. You can see a very defined line. That's when they're molding these. They put them into a mold, and it's basically two halves. It's like a metal press. They have it together, and they pump whatever vinyl or plastic in there, and then they release it. It's supposed to be airtight, so you don't see that seam on the side. And there's very clearly a seam right there. You can very, very clearly see it on the side there, like right on his side. Like, it's very abundantly there. So it just shows that they didn't sculpt these very well. They did it very quickly, and they did it very cheaply. So a lot of the other stuff is okay, but definitely not great. So the sculpt on it for like minor flaws like that, for such a big company, is not good. I'm giving it a 3 out of 10 on the sculpt because there's just no excuse. We've seen the good quality of what they can do. We've seen it. Like, this is immaculate. Like, look at this. Look at this Batman. You can look at him up close. You can see all the sculpts are perfect. He's got muscles. He's got different parts. He's got a cape. There's no seams. There's no lines. There's no nothing. It's just a genuinely good job. So it's not that they're incapable. It's just that they're being negligent. And that, I say, is really, really bad business. That people are paying for this, expecting good quality, and they're getting this. Like, I can understand if it was like, these look like bootlegs. Like, they legit look like aftermarket knockoffs or something like that. And if that was the case, then I'd say I understand. You don't have as many means, you don't have as much money, I get it. But to make them look like knockoffs when they're the actual product, like, that's just shameful. That's like, sorry, there's a weird noise over there. That's just shameful. That's really shitty of them to do, and I'm not a fan of that at all, and that's really embarrassing for them. And for the X-Men series. People have been asking for X-Men Mystery Minis for so long. And when you look at the box, they actually look really badass. They actually look pretty well done there. Like, they look like they're well sculpted and well painted, and that's always an illusion. Like, obviously they picked the best ones to take a picture of, and I've learned better than that. And I'm glad I didn't get this whole series too, because I was in Hot Topic and looking at it, and I was about to buy a whole box, but I stopped myself because I thought, like, these pictures look a little too photoshopped, and I don't think that's going to be the case, and I'm glad I didn't get a full box, and I went to go grab some random ones at Target for cheap, and I'm glad I didn't get more for that exact reason. So, on to the third score, the paint. And we'll get up in here and I'll show you this, like, good God. Like, you can see, and again, I'll do my best here, like, in his hand, it's just not even following the lines, and there's spackles of paint everywhere. And on the back, like, there's just, it doesn't follow, look at that. It's not even in the lines. Like, this is just shameful here. Like, this is ridiculous. And the face is not painted. Like, same with Professor X. There's no paint involved here. There's no sculpt. There's nothing there. It's just like a stick-on face, like almost like a stick-on tattoo. Like, and it looks so stupid. Like, what is this face that he's making? Like, that is so ridiculous. And it just looks crazy. And the same with Cyclops. And it's more abundant. You can see it better with him because it's such a bright yellow. But around his pants and stuff, like, it's totally out of the lines. Like, what is going on here where they can't paint these figures? And they're not done by hand. If they were done by hand, I'd say, yeah, you know, shit happens. Oh, yeah, here's the big one. Like, you can see underneath his hand here. Just focus. Come on. Yeah, underneath his hand where there's just, like, right in there. Where you can just see those are, like, random blotches of paint. Just, like, full-on random blotches. And I was looking all over him, and there's just, like, spots of paint of different colors, like on his shoulder here. Like that. There's just like little specks of paint. Where it's like, what the hell? Like, what the fuck is going on in that company? Like, what are they doing? I know they're not doing it by hand. And like I said, if they were doing it by hand, I get it. Like, humans are imperfect, it happens. But this is all an automated process. They're just not putting enough attention into detail here, where it's like, there's actual spatters of paint that just go everywhere onto other figures. It's like, does no one quality check these? There's no quality check there. So as far as a paint job, I'm going to give it a 2. And that's because I think there are like elementary school kids that can do a better job painting these. When I was in kindergarten, I could do a better job painting than that. There's no excuse that there's such shitty quality on the paint job. And the same, look at Cyclops' freaking face. Like, you can see on his cheek here. There's just like blue paint, like right there. Just like, there's none on Batman. His are all in the lines. His is like pretty perfect actually. Like, his is like spot on to the decimeter. Like, look at that. That is amazingly done. And it's painted completely. Even the one that's all blue. But they couldn't execute this? Like, that. There's no way. I can't believe they ruined such a good series like that. And I feel bad for anyone that's buying them and expecting more and getting this. And keep in mind, these are not worst case scenario. These are just 3 random figures that were picked out from Target. It's not like it was like a bad box that they like sold at a discount because there were mess-ups on them. This is how they all are. This is just how those figures are. So combining those 3 scores and averaging them out, this figure line gets a total of a 3 out of 10. 3 out of 10. This is one of the few times. Most of the things I review on here are things I've picked out myself, so the scores will be typically high, but I got 2 of them and then found Juggernaut because I wanted Juggernaut. And I had to review them and I had to let people know about this. Do not buy this series. There's also some Hot Topic exclusive which look cool, but I'm guessing they're going to look like shit. Do not waste your money on this series. Do not support Funko in doing this shit. Buy the Arkham Asylum ones. These are awesome. These are still in stores, and they're all 1 of 12. They're all common, and they're great. They did such a good job. This is one of my favorite series, and I didn't even play those games. But this series, I can't believe it. Like, to put these 2 next to each other, like, we'll just do another close-up here. Like, super badass Batman, Egghead Professor X. Like, these are both mystery minis right here. There's no distinction. Both of these are mystery minis. They're both the same price. They're both around $6 for blind box. They're both common. They're just a different franchise, but they're both along the same series and they're both mystery minis. Like, is that not unbelievable that these are in the same category? So, I was infuriated when I got these, and I usually am not. I'm usually better at seeing these things, but this time I fell for it. And there's no excuse. Funko has no excuse. They have the money. They have the means. They have the product availability. They have the designers there. I've seen their team members. there's no excuse for this. They phoned it in. They intentionally didn't put effort into this, which is so weird. Why not? The X-Men, for fuck's sake. Like, one of the most popular series out there, the X-Men. And they do this? Like, that's crazy. That's so stupid. So please do not support Funko. Do not buy these figures. I would avoid these at all costs. There's so much better stuff out there. And I hope they see this video and are shamed by it and do this series again. Or do something again. And because there's just no accepting this. And that's why I've been more critical of things I buy, because obviously I'm going to run out of space eventually. So these are things that I'm not going to waste time with and I need to tell you guys about. This channel is all about helping you find the best stuff out there, but also in the process help you avoid shit like this. So I am appalled and I'm ashamed. But again, as always, let me know what you guys think. Is there people out there that love this series that don't care about terrible sculpt and paint job? I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. So let's talk about it. Let's get a discussion going. And if there's any information you'd like to know, please let me know. And thoughts on the video, whether you like hearing history lessons or not, or you want me to just shut up and show you figures, that's okay. You can be honest and just let me know what you what you think about it. Anyway, so this has been the X-Men Mystery Mini Series by Funko. 3 out of 10. See you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. Love y'all. Peace.